What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Pazza podcast. We are back this week following the midweek fixture against Arsenal, where Inter loses at home 3-1. Also, the very crazy Pazza Inter match that occurred yesterday, Friday. Inter going down early 2-0 to Pisa. Goals that you could maybe argue avoidable goals. Definitely the first one for sure. But Inter made no mistake about it and clawed their way back, scoring 6 goals in the final 55 minutes to ultimately win a 6-2 match versus bottom of the table Pisa. We have back this week the man, the myth, the legend. He's back, like I've always said, the grandson of the legendary Sandro Mazzola. Vince, doing all the dirty work, sending DiMarco memes at 4 a.m. and still able to make it onto the show today. Vince, hope you're doing all right. You got to watch the Arsenal match midweek live. So if you wouldn't mind, before we dive into this Pisa match, just give some thoughts on what your reaction was to us losing to the best team in the world at the moment. You could argue Arsenal.
So I really didn't expect a whole lot from that game. Looking at both the EPL and UCL tables right now, Arsenal's on top of both, deservedly. They haven't lost in Champions League, period. I don't believe they concede a whole lot at all either. We were lucky to get one off of them. So going into that game, especially considering our recent run of form in the Champions League, my my prediction was a 1-1 draw, and I feel like the end result, the score didn't totally reflect our quality of play. I do think we were better than 3-1 shows, but I do think it was a deserved loss. I don't think we brought our A game that day, which, maybe considering it seems like this team has some implicit priorities on the Scudetto now, maybe that's for the best. So it was disappointing, but life goes on, and I think the Pisa game this past Friday was a good way to bounce back from that.
Yeah, agree. I didn't, like I said, get to watch. I was working, getting to watch the game in live time, but I watched the first half and then kind of moseyed through the second half, doing stuff around the house, but still having the game on. And like you said, I don't think our performance was too terrible. There were definitely times in the match that we were on top of Arsenal. And, when it was 1-1, I think there was a break early after that 1-1 where Sucic was driving down and he had Thuram on his right, Barella kind of coming behind him, making the run towards his left. And a young 21, 22-year-old player made the wrong decision to feed Thuram when maybe Barella, in hindsight, would have been the better choice. And who knows, maybe if we go up 2-1 there, we're talking about a completely different result, and our tone is a little bit different about that match. But, like you said, I think the expectations, not only for us fans, but it seems like the players too, which you don't really like to hear or think about, but they're humans. Seemed like the expectations for that game weren't high for anybody. So the fact that there were moments that we were on top against, like I said, arguably the best team in the world, that's something that I think hang your hat on and, use to move forward. And unfortunately, yesterday, the match, the first 20 minutes, it seemed like that momentum and whatnot that you potentially could have used, having those periods of being on top against Arsenal. It's like the guys, for whatever reason, didn't bring that into the match. We're diving now into the Pisa match yesterday on Friday, and it was a frustrating match. I know I wasn't able to watch it live, but with the group message me and Vince are in, it I wasn't planning on even listening to the match, and then within the first 25 minutes, pretty much it was like the sky was falling and the bottom was dropping out and the world was crumbling beneath us. So of course I couldn't, not listen to the rest of the match. Um, to start things off with this Pisa match, there was a little bit of rotation, you could say, that Kivu brought in. Started off with Jan Sommer in goal, which I know we talked about this last time you were on, and you can confirm to all the people that are going to be like, I'm a Sommer defender. Did I not before the match say I wish that Martinez would have started?
You did. We agree on that. We agree on
Okay.
that. I've been
Yeah.
saying for months we need to rotate Joseph more, but to your credit, yes,
Okay.
you did say that.
I just want to get that out there before there's any question, before we dive into this Jan Sommer thing that's inevitably going to happen here in a minute. But getting back to the lineup, Bisek, De Vrij, Bastoni. Interesting to see De Vrij. I ended up really enjoying that selection and whatnot. Luis Enrique, Sucic, Zielinski, Mkhitaryan, Carlos Augusto, and that five there in the middle. So bringing in Sucic to the right in place of Barella, moving him from the left to the right, and then Mkhitaryan coming in, and Carlos Augusto coming in for Di Marco. And then Pio getting the start over Turam, Lautaro remaining in the starting position. So Bisek, De Vrij, Mkhitaryan, Augusto, Pio, all coming in, five changes from the midweek, which I like, especially when you're going against a bottom table team or the bottom of the table squad. Pisa, mid or on a Friday, seemingly should get the job done. Before we dive into this game, though, Vince, going to throw a little curveball at you. The fourth kits, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't like him. Sorry. I mean, they kind of mean something now after the performance we put in wearing them, but it's not enough to get me to buy it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I at first I was not a fan, to be honest with you, because it's like the blue and even the logo, like it looks smaller than the logo on the home kit, the Inter logo. For whatever reason, with the white on the blue, it looks like a tiny little, like something you would see on the streets of Milan, like the um, fake kits that the vendors on the streets of Milan are selling. Like that's what the logo looks like. It's so tiny. And then it's like Halloween from nipple down, pretty much orange and black. It's a very weird color scheme. Don't know why or what that has to do with the Olympics or the Dolomite region of Italy, but that's what they're telling us it means. For me,
And
it's kind of grown on me though. I kind of fuck with it. I think it's an interesting scheme.
I don't know, to me it looks kind of like a training kit, which I mean, considering by the end of the game we were basically using Pisa as target practice, maybe that's fitting, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I know in our circles, Nike gets a lot of flack for some of their design choices over the past few years, and I feel like yeah, they got it wrong again this time.
Yeah. Where I mean, we're definitely down below the pecking order as far as big clubs and Nike's terms. You can just tell by the past home kits the past couple years. Jumping back to the game, though, I thought the game kind of going opposite of what I was saying before we talked about the kits, but the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we looked actually pretty good. We were buzzing, zipping passes around. Again, not clinical though, and that's the theme of Inter for the last 18 months. But Pisa couldn't even get out of their own half within the first 5 minutes. We were putting the pressure and everything. But then in the 11th minute, the talking point, even though it's a 6-2 win for Inter, comfortable win in the end, this is ultimately what the talking point is post match. And so we'll go ahead and get into it since it happened in the 11th minute. Mkhitaryan plays a ball. Uh, wouldn't say it was the best pass back by any means, but that's not excusing what happened. Sommer controls it, tries to play Zielinski. There was a little bit of pressure on Zielinski. I don't know what the breakdown there between Zielinski and Sommer was, but it definitely, in my eyes, wasn't on Zielinski at all. It was just a terrible pass by Jan Sommer and led literally right to Moreo for Pisa. And one time, almost reminiscent, if you remember Stankovic's goal versus Genoa in 2010, where Amelia, the goalkeeper for Genoa, tried to kick it out, miskicked it, and Stankovic on the half volley one time put it in the net for Genoa. But Inter goes down 1-0. Absolutely horrid mistake from Jan Sommer. And Vince, you have been a big proponent of getting Jan Sommer out. What were your thoughts when you saw this?
That that was Serie B bad. Like to your point. the a moment ago you mentioned when Stankovic scored a similar goal, and the comparison that I was drawing internally was to DeMarco doing that to Frosinone a couple years back when he shot from halfway about and lobbed the keeper there. That kind of mistake is something that other teams do against us, and we laugh about them on our way to winning 3-0. About 2 years ago, that's the kind of thing we would see goalkeepers do against us. For it to come from our keeper, that's just inexcusable. He knows better. I don't know what he was thinking. And I've been, like we've mentioned, I've been lobbying for Pep Martinez to get more starts for months now. And to see something like that, it tells me that things aren't getting better. And I'm confused because, Pep Martinez, there was the accident earlier this season. And I know recently he got injured, but I heard he recovered from that. But it seems like we just don't play him. And I don't know why. It it's genuinely confusing to me. Is he that bad in practice? Because anytime we've seen him play, getting actual game action, he seems fine. He seems like a capable shot stopper. He did great in the penalty shootout against Bologna in the Supercopa. So to see Sommer make that kind of mistake that we're used to laughing at other teams making against us, it's beyond the pale. It really is. Thank you for your time. He was brought in as a stopgap, but at this point, you're costing us goals, you're costing us points. It's not just yesterday, it's the Juve game. It's I don't know. I really don't have a lot of words for it that I haven't already said. I'm trying not to crash out here. But he no, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know why we don't play Pep Martinez more, but after yesterday, it's clear to me. We need to start doing it. Make it happen. He can't
Yeah.
be that. He can't. Pep Martinez can't be that bad. Of course, we don't know because we don't play him. Give him a shot.
Yeah, exactly. The times we have seen it hasn't been a disaster by Pep by any stretch of the means. And yeah, you're investing 15 million on a keeper a year and a half ago, and you still have no idea what you have. And 15 million is what we paid for Sucic. Like we could have reinvested this 15 million if we weren't going to ultimately see what we have in Martinez on something else. And that's the frustrating thing. Getting back to this goal too by Jan Sommer, the mistake. Everyone who's listened to this podcast or heard me go on interviews, whatever, knows that I don't want to say a Sommer defender, but that's the only really word I find because I pretty much have been. But this is inexcusable. There's no defending this. If you're unsure about what to do, you boot it into Rosette. Like just clear it out. Why put yourself in this scenario? Especially, it's not like he was in his own box. He's 5 yards outside of his box. So any mistake that you make distributing there, you're exposed. You're exposed worse than you would be at any other part of the pitch. And so like I don't understand why he didn't just boot it out. We've seen him do it this season when he gets under pressure, when whatnot, just boot it out. And I don't know what it was here that made him not do that, but it's inexcusable, and I can't defend him for this at all. And it's something the defense I've made for why we keep seeing Jan Zomer in goal more often than not, in my opinion, is I think his distribution. That's one thing Pep Martinez I would say that we haven't really seen come off too great is his distribution when he's featured, which is something, being a Barcelona Academy graduate, you expect those keepers to be way better distributing. And for Martinez, it seems to be, it's not terrible by any means, but it's not up to where Jan Sommer was last year, the year before, and Onana was the season before that. And even Handanovic towards the end of his career, distribution wise, was pretty good. But for this, I mean, it's that's just a boneheaded mistake. And I know some people were complaining about, he didn't even try to get back. I mean, at that point, he was a mile away from the ball. So him trying to get back, like it wouldn't have mattered. I understand you want to see the effort and stuff, especially after you give a mistake like that. But like when you're a mile away from the ball, when it's going in, like there's no point. I think that's not a reason to be upset with Jan Zomer. I think it's just the boneheaded error, and it's a shame that, like I said, a 6-2 victory. Despite it being rocky early on, we should be celebrating 6 points up on Milan, 9 points up on Napoli. They're going into a weekend where they both have pretty tough fixtures. And yet here we're talking about Jan Zomer again. And I mean, it's like you mentioned, what's going on in training. Like, if I'm not mistaken, when these goalkeepers train, they maybe start and warm up with the squad, do some, keep away stuff, but then they break off and kind of go do their training on their own. And so it begs the question, like, what is Orlandoni reporting back to Kivu after these training sessions? Like, because ultimately he's the one seeing Sommer day in and day out. Orlandoni, the goalkeeping coach for Inter. So it's like, where's the disconnect here? Because it's something that fans have been calling for, and we've seen like the Juve match and a couple of, even when we went and saw the Club World Cup, there was a time or two on a corner where he dropped it in a dangerous area and it could have been worse than it actually turned out to be. So it's like, what's going on in training that Orlandoni is not making Kivu or giving Kivu the information that we need to make a change? And then like a match against Pisa or even midweek against Arsenal, when seemingly we've wrapped up qualifying for the next round and we can't really make it into the top 8. Like, why is Martinez not getting the opportunities in these games? And that's the one thing I think you can argue. Kivu has kind of lost the plot a little bit in the last month. Is why are we not integrating or at least seeing what we have with Martinez? But the second goal that comes in the 23rd minute for Pisa, again, the group message was melting down. And now that you have, almost 24 hours, 20 hours roughly of reaction, the second goal for Pisa, it's a set piece. Again, another set piece goal. Inter concedes. It's 2 in 2 games. Arsenal scored midweek on a set piece. And it's the zonal defending. And Moreo, again, gets a second goal. He runs free. I mean, there was not a single person near him. Hits the header on the near post. Jan Sommer gets a hand to it. And you can maybe make the argument that, with he gets his hand on it, you've got to get it out. Vince, what do you think about this goal? And do you think Jan Sommer, again, is the 100% blame for this second goal as well?
Not 100%. I do agree that the zonal marking we've introduced has kind of been a problem since we introduced it. I mean, you look at the first game of the Club World Cup. How old is Sergio Ramos? He's getting free on a corner, beating all three of guys in our back line and scoring on us.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday, yeah, they lost Moreo and he scored. I do blame Jan Sommer for it as well. It seems like more and more when he is getting contact, it's not quite enough of it. If you're making contact with it, you hope for something a little more solid. I forget which game it was. I think Arsenal, the third goal, that happened too, actually. But there was a league game where that also happened. It seems like with Summer now, one of two things happens when a shot comes his way. Either he clips it, gets a piece of it, but it's not enough to matter, or he does this thing where he like stands in place and just wonders what happened as everything just goes past him.
Yeah, the
Um,
Handanovic. That's the Handanovic special right there. That's what he was known for towards the end of his career.
yeah, but yeah, I do blame him a lot for that corner. I mean, between those two goals, it was to the point where I was saying we should have started Pep Martinez anyway. Like, hell, put him in at halftime. Just he can't be doing much worse than this. I mean, we're down 2-0 to 19th place Pisa. This is teams like this, they park the bus, they sit back in a low block. Once something like this happens, they're going to try and steal a point. And knowing how we are usually not clinical in front of net, I think a lot of people had some good reason to be concerned about the trajectory of the game because it was like, all right, we got to find one goal now. Can we get one on target? And if we can get one on target, can we get two? Obviously, that concern was a little unfounded yesterday. There are other games where you look at the first Udinese game. That's we score once early, allow two, and we spend the rest of the game throwing all four forwards on at once in search of trying to uh, get back a point against a team that's just sitting in a block, trying to get away with what they can. And it looked like Pisa were gonna just be content to do that, but that DeMarco sub when it came a few minutes later, that changed everything. And props to Kivu for making that rapid response.
Yeah, true. Like you mentioned, the zonal defending. That's something you can blame Kivu on. You mentioned, we've seen it Club World Cup against Monterrey. I'm pretty sure Thiago Silva, whenever he scored it for Fluminense, that was off of a corner as well. Two 40-plus-year-old guys getting free on a corner and scoring. If that's not evidence enough that the zonal defending maybe wasn't working, what we've seen so far this season, and very much recently so, Atletico, Arsenal, this match, giving up goals on corners or set pieces against Juve. Thuram's goal was a set piece, the first one that he scored. It's a problem. And Kivu not making the adjustment there. You got Jan Zomer and Joseph Martinez not figuring out, the right kind of path of succession, if you will, if we want to go deep into Roman history there, path of succession. How are you going to pass on a 37-year-old goalkeeper, like integrate that 26-year-old in? He's kind of failed, stumbled at that. And then the reluctance to admit, we were a team last year that whenever a set piece corner happened, my confidence meter was 100% that we were not going to concede. Arsenal, when we played them in the Champions League last year, had how many corners, set pieces, throw ins,
I
and
think it
we
was
dealt with all of them.
14.
Yeah, we dealt
I
with
think.
all of them with ease.
Yep. I
And
saw the stat
now,
before the match. It was 14. That was something that last year we prided ourselves on. And yeah,
yeah, and now anytime there's a set piece corner, it doesn't matter if it's, if we were playing Barcelona and the 4 foot tall midfield merchants, the whole team that they have that's below 5 foot all the time, I would still be scared that we were going to concede. Like that's just the way it is right now under Kivu. And I think that's something Angelo Palombo brought with him, the assistant coach under Kivu. And it's something at some point, if we want to go further in the Champions League, if we want to continue this push top of the league, you have to ultimately look yourself in the mirror and especially now that we're mid-season and say what has worked and what hasn't worked and evaluate and make changes to continue on the right path to success. And that's something I think, Kivu has failed at. For a lot of good that he's done, that's something that he has failed at. And getting back to the goal real quick before we talk about the substitution and sing Kivu's praises, if you watch the zonal defending too, Pisa kind of shouting out Gilardino here. He always gives us a problem. He was the manager for Genoa the year before when they came in and tied us 2-2 at the beginning of the season, first game of the season. Pisa, the first game on the road when we played them a couple months ago, ended up winning 2-0, but the first half there were some sketchy moments against Pisa. And then this match, if you watch that corner, I forget which defender it was for Pisa. It was Calabrese. He was in front of Pio, who was there on the front post, kind of like boxing him out like a basketball player does, setting a pick for that Moreo to run right in front of where Pio's zone, what that zone is, which made it look the zonal defending a lot worse than it actually maybe was. Pio just couldn't get around Calabrese. And then Sommer, yet it's one of those that yes, he got a hand on it, and he needs to have a hand when you get it like that. You got to have stronger hands and get it out of there. Whether it's preventing the goal, don't hit it into your net is kind of ultimately what I'm going to say. Like if you make a save and it spills and they follow up and score, like we can live with that. The fact that you had weak hands and it just ultimately hit off into the back of the net, you're on your back heels. You're not on your toes when that happens 99% of the time. And that's a problem. When the ball's coming in on a corner, you got to be on your toes. So I'm kind of 50-50, like you said. I don't put 100% of the blame on Jan Zomer here. And I don't put really the blame on Pio. I put a blame on the system here. I think if you're marking man to man, you can't get blocked out or picked out of the way like that. So there's two things going on there, in my opinion. And yeah, Inter's down 2-0 early, and it's a shell shock. 23rd minute, something I'm sure Allegri, Conte, they're sitting there seeing this result, licking their lips, thinking, "Oh shit, we now have a chance to get back into the Scudetto race." Like, what is going on there in Milan? And fans in the stadium, you could hear the kind of unrest a little. And in our group message, like I said, it seemed like the world was crumbling down. And what was the response going to be from Inter going down 2-0? That's something you hear a lot of people talk about. This team, we're weak mentally, and when we get punched in the face, we don't respond. We just keep getting punched in the face. And I don't think that was the case here. Obviously, winning 6-2, but immediately after that goal, I think there was a response in the 30th minute too, not too long after. Luis Enrique played a great through ball to Sucic, and Sucic kind of snapped at it. It was a cross shot. I don't know what you want to kind of describe it as. Lautaro was there on the back post, missed it by a couple inches. And so we knew the threat was there and it was going to be there going forward. And then you'd mentioned it, Kivu makes ultimately the biggest move you could argue of his coaching career at Inter. He takes off Luis Enrique, moves Carlos Augusto to the right wing back position, and brings on Di Marco. And that was in the 34th minute, and we didn't have to wait but 3 minutes before we got a goal back. Instant impact from Di Marco. I believe he was the one that crossed the ball in that led to it getting to Carlos Augusto. Carlos Augusto then kind of on a volley, whatever, hits it in. It finds its way back after the deflection to Zielinski. Zielinski strikes it and outstretched arm for Pisa, and referee points to the spot. Before we get talking about the penalty events, live time, and then with the replay, did you think it was a penalty?
Uh, I missed it live. I looked down, so it was hard for me to tell. I was just happy that we got a break. I mean, we had some chances earlier, like you were saying. There was that one that Sucic tried to give to Lautaro that didn't work out, and I know Bisek had another good run at one point that one just went wide. But to get a pen, I didn't really think too much about it. I was like, all right, let's get one here, let's convert, let's get something, and hopefully at least go into halftime 2-1 with something to work towards. So looking at it on the replay, yeah, it might have been a little soft. But considering how many soft penalties have gone against us, it's one of those things that you take it when you get it, but you're not bragging about it either, I'd say.
Yeah, for me, looking at it in live, it definitely looked like a penalty whenever I watched it in quick live action. But then when you watch the replay, it's tough. You could argue that it came off of the Pisa player's chest, in my opinion, first. It's very bang bang, very quick. It reminds me a lot. I don't know if you remember, this had to have been like 2018, 2019. D'Ambrosio conceded a penalty late in a match, and it was one. And I think they even had VAR. This was like the first season of VAR, or it was the season right before they introduced VAR, one or the other. And it comes off D'Ambrosio like right here, like right underneath his armpit, pretty much, and then hits the bottom side of his arm. Letter of the law, if it hits a different part first and then bounces off your arm, it's not a penalty. And that was the only thing when I saw the replay, I was like, did that come off the chest? But again, they can hide behind because it was given as a penalty on the field. There wasn't conclusive evidence, and it's that terminology that I hate, clear and obvious. It gives the referee a crutch, and it really wasn't clear and obvious to overturn. So he's going to go with the call on the field. But with no Çalhanoğlu on the field, Vince, were you a little worried about this, that we were going to fail to convert given our great penalty record sub Çalhanoğlu?
So I wasn't too worried. I know that aside from Çalhanoğlu, we have Zielinski to take penalties, and he's for the most part proven to be a pretty dependable taker for us. So him going to the line, I felt cautiously optimistic. I was like, all right, he'll hopefully get one here, and we'll get back in this. And he proved me right. It was a great. He took a great penalty too. There was not only did the keeper just go the wrong way, but he just great power on it into the roof of the net. No one was stopping that.
No, I honestly, when I first saw it, I thought he skied it. Like, I was like, holy shit, he skied it. Like, this game is not going our way. But you're right. It was a great penalty, unsavable. Somehow would have been Jan Zomer's fault though if that was against us. All jokes
Yeah.
aside, it was an unsavable penalty, and we're back. I mean, I think somebody had mentioned, we have to get one back before halftime, and when you go down 2-1-0 early in the first half, there's that's not or there's no more true statement than you have to get one back before the half. You got to get the momentum kind of riding your way before you go into the break. And so that was a big, goal we had in the 37th minute. The momentum back kind of going to our way against a Pisa side that is up 2-1. And what was going to happen after that? And it didn't take long again. 4 minutes later, we get our second goal to draw it level. And what a goal it was. It's that guy again, controversial for whatever reason in Inter circles. People love to hate on him because he doesn't score in big games, is what they say. But he is our captain, and he is. I've said it the last couple of weeks, and I'll keep saying it. We live and die by Lautaro, and it comes from across from that substitute again, making an impact yet again, DiMarco. And it's just a beautiful header. And the goal was absolutely beautiful. Vince, what did you think of Lautaro's response after he scored that header?
It's what you want to see from our captain. He's he wears his heart on his sleeve. He always has. He's very deserving of the armband. There's not a lot of players on this roster who put it all on the line like he does with the constant effort. There are some. I'd say DeMarco's one of them. Um, and both of them, they did a great job on that goal. It's what you wanted to see to get us even. And the fact that we were even and they were excited about it, you knew, okay, they're hungry. This is back to normal. We can go from here and everything's going to be fine. So I would say the reaction was cathartic to see, but it was also, it gave me a lot of assurance.
Yeah, for sure. And it's an opportunity for Lautaro. How many games do we see Lautaro where he has 20 chances seemingly and puts away only one? This is a game where really, if you watch the whole game, he had this chance and then maybe one other chance. But this was Lautaro being clinical, which is something we really don't say. So shout outs to Lauti. Let's see what it says. It says he had 3 shots on target. Dang, that's a lot more than I thought he did. But converted one to make a goal. So 33% rate, which if you listen to interviews, Gianmarco, I think he said his conversion rate with shots on target at Lautaro is 15%. So way better, more clinical this match from our captain. And we brought one back 2-2. And then right as we get into extra time in the first half, the Interisti, the intergraduate, the wonder kid, the superstar in the making, the future of Inter in Italy, whatever superlatives have been given out to this kid, Pio Esposito, he scores to get us back on top 3-2. Vince, I'm going to let you take this over and talk about this goal. What did you think of it?
Oh, it was great. It was very similar to the first goal, or sorry, the previous goal. They all blend together. It was similar to the previous goal, except it was Bastoni providing the cross in instead of DeMarco. Bastoni put a great ball in. Uh, Pio went up for it. He got it, and he put a header in that the keeper wasn't able to do anything about. And we've talked about Pio before. The impact he's had as a substitute. Actually having striker depth, the ability to rotate our strikers and get goals and assists out of them. It's so nice having that now, and for Pio to be contributing in the last couple games especially, he's been on a bit of a tear. It was
Mhm.
what he had the one against Lecce,
The
the
assist
winner
against
there,
Atalanta to Lautaro, that through ball, that was like his first touch of the game against Atalanta. He had the assist.
the you mean the Udinese game, right?
No, Udinese, Atalanta's the one I think they misplayed the ball to Pio. It was Jimsiki played it
Yeah,
right, and then he played through Lautaro.
yeah. I think he did assist Lautaro and Udine too, though.
Yeah, so he's been on a
So
tear.
it's been a tear, and even in the Arsenal game, the Arsenal fan reactions were all like, "Who is this guy? Like, where did he come from?" And people were like, "Yeah, Arteta had to make a substitution to deal with the guy." Um, and I'm gonna make a bit of a comparison here, and maybe this is a little premature, but you know, we know he's very physical, has great hold up play, and that other teams have to try and grapple with him to stop him. I think we might have a bit of a Rob Gronkowski on our hands here. I
I like
think
it.
this is, it's a little premature. We have to see how his career progresses. But the fact that other teams don't seem to know what to do about him except grab on and try and stop him, I think maybe that's a good comparison here. That if he keeps progressing like he has been, he could do some really special things for us. Whether it's whether it's his hold up play or his ability to get assists, he's been great at that. And he's starting to score too. I know I was a bit critical of his finishing a little earlier in the season, but he's starting to get him on net here. And if he keeps growing with that, then I think we might have a superstar on our hands. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I like the Gronkowski comparison. Let's just hope Pio doesn't start twerking on stage, in the off season and everything. But yeah, you're right. Teams don't know how to play against Pio, and I think, that's just the way football has kind of transformed. 20, 25 years ago, you'd see defenders that can battle and put in performances against a defender like this. Acerbi is probably one of the few defenders in world football that could, handle a PO type player, which we've seen time and time again. But you're right, the way football is kind of evolving, PO is in an interesting spot because you don't see strikers like him anymore. You look at the list of Italian strikers, 10 years plus ago, and Iaquinta, Tony, Pazzini, all these players, Bobo Vieri, all these players were in that mold, but that kind of art has kind of died in the last few years. And so it's great to see that there's still a role for a player like that. And you're right, Pio has been contributing, and this goal was just another line of great things he's done, and it was a fantastic goal. I mean, the effort, just the pure effort to get in front of Canestrelli was, I mean, that was an effort goal, like 100%. He wanted it more than the defender, and he wanted to bring Inter back on top. He had everything to do there, and that's what's so impressive about it, that a 19, 20-year-old seemingly is aware of the moment of what needs to happen and makes it happen. And this might be a little premature, and I have written this for a later talking point, but let's just go ahead and talk it since we're talking about Pio. It's to the point now where we got to start talking, is he or Boni, who had another great performance, and we'll talk about him later too, a great performance. Is Turam third or maybe even fourth choice at this point, Vince?
Yeah, I hate to say it, and especially, Marcus Thuram, we brought him in and he made an immediate impact and he was a key contributor to that the most recent Scudetto that we won. But, and when healthy last year, he put in some good work for us too. But yeah, looking at the overall form of the strikers this year, Thuram seems like he's sliding away from the rest of them a little bit. Pio's in great form right now, clearly. Bonnie has been a revelation. We were like, why is Kipu getting this guy out of Parma? Like, what does he see in him? And then he's delivered for us. He scores a fair bit. He assists a fair bit. He provides some pace to our game that Thuram usually has, but there's also some element of physicality to that, to his game too. And Lautaro's our captain. And where does that leave Thuram? He's kind of fourth in the pecking order right now. He's not really scoring a lot. I mean, he had a recent goal that was kind of accidental, the one where he had to almost like shoulder it into the net and realized, oh, I scored. And then I know he'd flicked a ball to Lautaro that Lautaro sent over to Zelensky for a goal a couple weeks ago. But by and large, it doesn't seem like Marcus Thuram is changing the game like he used to. And there's an argument to be made now that if you count Federico DiMarco, maybe he's fifth in the attack
Yeah.
because I mean DiMarco yesterday, what he had like 2 assists, a goal. He's on red hot form right now. I know everybody gives him deserved flack for the Champions League final, but as far as his form before the injury last year, he was great too. When Federico DiMarco is on form, he's one of the best two left wing backs in the world. And you add him to the attack, it kind of makes Marcus Thuram look even worse, which I hate to say. There's been some controversy with the last Juve game, him not celebrating after scoring, him laughing it up with his brother and the other Juve players. But I don't hate Marcus Thuram. I know I've been ragging on him my last few appearances here. He's been a key contributor to us for us the past couple of years. I want to see him do well for us like he has, but right now he's just not. He's either not in good form or he's checked out, and it sucks to see because when he is on form, yeah, he's a huge contributor.
Yeah, but you have to, they always say in basketball, feed the hot hand. You have to feed the hot hand here. And Pio right now is definitely the hot hand with Lautaro. Boni, you could even make an argument, has got a hotter hand than Thuram. It's a good problem to have, I think, for Inter that we have actually a striker competition compared to last year, where if Thuram or Lautaro gets hurt, who do we play? Do we have to, revert to a 3-5-1-1, just play one lone striker because the rest of the bench and not Lord Arnautovic. I will never say a bad word about our Lord and Savior Marco Arnautovic, but all jokes aside, we didn't have a competition last year. And so it's a good problem to have this, but it also begs the question, is it time to make Turam, ride the back seat? And then eventually we know how the project under Oak Tree is going. Is it going to be something in the summer that we have to evaluate and see if we need to move on from a player whose value may now be in the point of his career where it's at a plateau, potentially going back down as far as market value goes. So it's an interesting moment in Turam's Inter career, and it just also shows how great Pio and Boni have been this season to that we're having this conversation. Something that no matter how bad of a drought Turam would have went on last season, we wouldn't have had this conversation because our backups were Correa and Taremi and the greatest striker Inter has ever seen, Marco Arnautovic. But that's the first half, essentially. Inter battles back and shows that fighting spirit that ultimately wins Scudetti. And it's good to see. And it's Pazza Inter. We had mentioned last time you were on here that Pazza Inter in our DNA, doesn't matter who tries to come and change that. That's just what this club, for better or for worse, is. First half, my thoughts, DiMarco changed the match. Hats off to Kivu, but you can also kind of give Kivu a knock on his grade for that first half due to the zonal defending and the reluctance to integrate Pep Martinez due to Sommer's error and on the first goal and the combination of the zonal defending and Sommer's inability to keep the ball out on the second goal. I thought our midfield, Sucic, Mkhitaryan, Zielinski, we never really seen this midfield before. There's a couple dumb giveaways from each midfielder at certain points in the first half, but overall, I think they kind of played decent. It was kind of a topsy turvy half for that midfield. Stefan de Vrij, we can maybe save this. Well, let's go ahead and talk about it because I mentioned it. Unbelievable first half performance and honestly a great game. There was moments in the first half Spider-Man meme rubbing my eyes to look more clearly. I was like, is this Lucio out here on the pitch for us again? Because he had found his way. I think he even sombreroed a defender for Pisa at one point on the touchline over there and was making marauding runs forward. Like it was insane the first half that De Vrij had, and he carried it into the second half. I think he got beat maybe one time in the second half. But other than that, a near flawless performance, in my opinion, from De Vrij. And, the first half, it was one of those kind of bipolar performances from Inter. And then we move our way into the second half and put everything to bed. There was no real drama. There was one, I don't know if you remember, a corner kick, another set piece. It was in the 75th minute, off the corner, Canestrelli again. He ran free and really he should have put it in the back of the net, and it would have been 3-3 at that point because we hadn't scored our fifth or fourth, fifth or sixth goal. And I, in all caps, put abandon the zonal defending now. I don't think we need to talk about it anymore because we've already talked about it, but yeah, I don't think we can move forward, especially in the Champions League, with this zonal defending on set pieces. Before that, though, we had some substitutions. Barella came on for Sucic, Thuram for Pio, and kind of going to what we were just talking about a minute ago. Whenever Pio came off the field, you can hear the fans chanting, Pio goal, Pio goal, Pio goal. They want to see Pio starting every match now. Some other different things I saw before we get to our other goals. Zielinski, I thought, had a really good defensive, which you don't think about with Zielinski, but in the second half specifically, he was winning a lot of balls there in the midfield, and not like winning it like we used to see Brozovic win it, going to ground, slide tackling, or we see Hakan kind of getting stuck in a lot of challenges. It was more like anticipatory, his anticipation, his reading of the game. He was just able to step in without having to really make a challenge a lot of the time and win the ball back, which was really good to see. We saw it against Napoli as well, him winning the ball off McTominay, which led to one of our goals. It's a side of Zielinski's game that we didn't know we had whenever we got him, and we're seeing him put in the effort. So really great for Zielinski. Everyone knows he's one of my favorite players. I was joyed whenever we got him, and it's great to see he's finally back to his best. Even got, I'm not going to turn around because my back is sore, but I got Zielinski on the back of this new kit. And going back to our midfield as well before we move on to the goals. Sucic, how did you feel about Sucic? Had the big performance midweek with the goal against Arsenal. What did you think about his response with this performance against Pisa, Vince?
I thought it was good. I know Sucic was a player that some of us had talked a little bit about how he had started really strong for us and then seemed to have a run of games where either things were too big for him or he was in poor form or something. But I think the past two games he's been solid. I have no complaints about him. He had a great goal against Arsenal. I feel like he almost had an assist yesterday. So I feel like he's getting back into the swing of things here, which as the calendar gets more congested, yeah, we're going to need him to contribute, and it's good to see him step up and rise to the occasion.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was a terrible performance by any means. If you look at FOTMob, he is the lowest rating outfield player for Inter in this match, lower than Luis Enrique, which is kind of crazy. 81% accurate passes, 0 for 3, so 0% on shots on target. 40% accurate crosses. Let's see, defensively, 29%. So 2 out of 7 ground duels won. 0 tackles made. It says 0 blocks, 4 recoveries, and dribbled past once. So based off the stats, Sucic did not have a good game. I don't think by any means it was a terrible match. Again, we've talked about he's 21, 22 years old. He follows up a very high performance against Arsenal midweek with a maybe mediocre, and that's what you get with players this age, kind of learning the match, learning Serie A, learning their role in a new squad. We got to take the highs with Sucic with the lows, and I think fans need to have patience with players of his age, him, Pio. We're not gonna we're in a purple patch with Pio right now, but there's gonna be moments, him being 19, 20, that he's gonna go through a little rough patch. So we need to be patient with these youngsters here. Also, before the goal, I don't know if you caught it, but I saw Darmian warming up on the sideline there. There was a Darmian sighting. So finally, we're getting our 36-year-old right wing back, sub right center back, hybrid left center back, whatever you want to call it, grandpa back into the mix. So that's always good. But we can now get at the goals that we finally really, and the match in my opinion was over at 3-2, barring that one chance they had off that corner. Never really felt like in the second half Pisa really threatened us. And then we make no mistake about it in the 82nd minute. DiMarco, an absolute belter of a goal. I love goals like that, the volleys where you hit it straight in the ground. Because for a keeper, it's impossible to save. When the ball gets hit straight in the ground, you can't do anything about it as a keeper. Fortunately, it comes off the post, which how many times, Vince, have we seen? Usually when it hits the post for Inter, it doesn't go back in the net. It goes out back into the field of play, and we don't get a goal off of it. So great for DiMarco. It was. I mean, we're gonna have to give Thuram his props too. It was a great assist over the top from Thuram. And Inter's up 4-2. That pretty much killed the game. Either of these last two goals, Vince, we had one from Anjan Boni and one from Mkhitaryan finally in the 93rd. Any of these goals you want to talk a little deeper about, or maybe give a quick little mention?
Um, so I'll give props to Ram for that fourth goal. He gave a pretty good ball over to DeMarco, who, like you said, kind of volleyed it off the ground, off both posts, and into the back of the net. It was nice to see the post working for us this time. Um, but yeah, knowing how we tend to leak goals, especially late, and considering we'd already allowed two and almost had allowed a third, I did think a fourth one was going to be needed for that extra bit of reassurance. And thankfully, we got it. We were able to breathe. And I love that. I don't know. I'm gonna gush about DeMarco a little bit here. Um, you know, born and bred Interista or Interista. Yeah, that's the singular. Sorry, not a native speaker. Um, but he always puts it all on the line for us. And I know until he got hurt last season, he was one of our best players. He was the man of the match of the game that you and I had went to. Well, I was wearing his jersey. He picked up 2 assists there. He's been on a great tear of form this year. I know he said, I think after the game, he had disappeared for like a month to try and get in shape, get right, get back to where he was. And he's done a great job on that. And it was nice to see him get 2 assists yesterday, but then also get that goal too to cap off what I felt like was a defining man of the match performance for him. As far as the other goals, then he assisted Bonnie, which again we mentioned Bonnie a little bit earlier. It's great to have strikers on the bench that we can rely on. And the stat, I forgot to mention it earlier, but I saw a stat after the game, and I don't know if it included Pisa, but I think it was all of last year. In the league, there were either 7 goals or goals of contributions between Arnautovic, Taremi, and Correa, and between Pio and Bonnie, we're already on 8. So I feel like that, between what we already talked about with Pio and Bonnie now getting on the score sheet again, it says it all, really. It's two guys I wish that, what might have changed if we had them last year, I don't know. Um, And then as far as the Mkhitaryan goal, I mean, yeah, we both have given him crap for probably it feels like 2 years now, where it's kind of the meme we have where like, oh look, he's shooting it into the parking lot again, because it seems like anytime he gets it, he just sails it, and I guess from that distance he couldn't miss. But I think they had said like the last time he had scored was what, like October 24. It was the Juve game.
16 months ago.
Yeah. It was, I remember it
Insane.
was that Juventus game, which yeah, that was a good goal if I remember right. He put in some good footwork there. But at that point it was just icing on the cake. So it was good to see him get that monkey off his back, even though it was like, all right, at this point this isn't changing anything. We're beating a dead horse. It would be nice if we could, I don't know, maybe let's save that for one of the games we got coming up, but at the end of the day, when was the last time we put up six? Was it that Lazio game last year?
Yeah, I
It
think
doesn't happen
so.
a lot, so it's nice to see the reaction after going down two. We kind of lean forward and say, all right, let's get serious here, and then we pummel them. Which yeah, it's Pisa, they're 19th place, but I feel like after losing the Arsenal game and then after going down like this was the response we needed. This is Grinta. This is what we need to show.
Yeah, agreed. And it's 6 goals in 55 minutes of the match, which is unreal, honestly. Like that return is absolutely insane. The Bony goal, when's the last time we had a goal like that where someone dribbled through like three defenders of the other team? Like we haven't seen that at Inter in so long. So that was refreshing to see. Mkhitaryan, despite him scoring, I'm not going to let him bring me back and think that he's great again. Fuck that. Mkhitaryan, sit on the bench until the last 15, 20 minutes. That's all we need you for. And like you said, yeah, 6-2, great response from the boys. DiMarco deservedly wins man of the match. You got to give Kivu credit for seeing that. Again, I don't think Luis Enrique played bad by any stretch of the means, and hopefully this doesn't dent his confidence. It was just something that was a tactical tweak Kivu saw and made, and it came off beautifully. Divrai, I think you could also maybe shout as like the second best player for Inter to this match, in my opinion. But yeah, that really sums up that match. I will like to say a little bit. Akinson Miro played in the second half for Pisa, the interim player. I heard his name a lot whenever I was listening to it, but when I actually watched it this morning, didn't really do too much. He would just be kind of an extra body if he joined. I don't really look for us probably redeeming him next year. It's probably somebody that we're going to use to get capital gains and profit moving forward into next year. But there's a player there. He kind of reminds me of Alfred Duncan. Plays for I think Venezia now, but he played for Fiorentina, Sassuolo, former Inter youth player. I think that's kind of the level we're looking at here with Atkinson Miro. And then another interesting thing I saw this morning, Kivu after the match came out to Jan Sommer's defense and said that it's his fault, really, Kivu, that Jan Sommer, these mistakes, he is putting too much on Jan Sommer as far as distributing and keeping possession and everything. And mentally, that has led to the mistake we saw earlier today or yesterday in that first goal. Vince, what are your thoughts on Kivu coming out and making these statements?
I mean, he's the coach. He's not Antonio Conte. He's not supposed to say, "Oh, it's his fault. It's his fault. It's everyone's fault except mine." It's a good coach like Kivu will, they'll fall on the sword for the players a little bit to try and protect them from criticism. So I I do think on the field in that situation, Summer needs to be smarter and make a better decision. But it is nice that Kivu sticks up for his players like he does, because, like I mentioned, there are other coaches out there that won't do that.
Yeah, you're not lying. Antonio Conte would have had an aneurysm on the sideline and probably threatened to quit if he didn't get Donnarumma in tomorrow to replace Jan Sommer. That's just how Conte is. I find it interesting. Kivu comes out and says that, like you said, he's the coach. What else is he supposed to do? But with an error like that, like you can only say so much before even Jan Sommer at that point has to know, like, hey, I fucked up. Like that was my mistake. So it's as good as it is and encouraging to see Kivu, it almost, I don't know, it's definitely like it feels like a half-hearted, half-assed kind of like I'm saying, like a very political move, kind of thing. So I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. I kind of wish Kivu would just maybe have been like next question or kind of glazed over it, in my opinion. But that's the match. Inter goes 6 points over Milan and 9 points over Napoli with a game in hand. Napoli this weekend play Juventus, which is the first match of the big double header Sunday this weekend in Serie A. Milan play Roma after. So two big matches for our direct competitors here in the Scudetto race. Also, just of note, happened about an hour ago. Como scoring 6 goals, putting it past Torino. Torino, you fucked up getting rid of Aslani. No Aslani, no party. You get rid of Aslani, you start conceding 6 goals. That's just correlative right there. That's how it happens. So, whoever said Serie A was boring, we have, what is that, 14 goals now in the first two matches of this match day. So, eat your heart out, Premier League. Before we get off of this, Vince, news coming out. Last time you were on, we talked about Fratesi leaving. That ultimately hasn't happened. I honestly just think his entourage and his agent are just making shit up at this point because it's been 3 windows in a row of how many top clubs are coming after Fratesi and nothing happens. So I think he's in purgatory right now with his career, and who knows what's going to happen with him. We had talked about João Cancelo. That ultimately didn't happen. He moved to Barcelona. But now news is coming out that we are potentially close in the moves and talks, whatever. You never know with this management, with this club, how transfers work. But Ivan Perisic, that could potentially happen on a 6-month dry loan. I think he's 39, 40 years old now. What do you think about this move if it materializes, Vince?
So he would add some much needed quality to the flank. I haven't watched much PSV this year, but I know last year he had some contributions in the Champions League campaign that they had. Um, as far as this year, um, sorry, hold on, I gotta move.
You're good. I'll take over for a second. So for me, Perisic, I think it's kind of like what I was said with João Cancelo last time we were talking. This is a move that you make. It's only 6 months. I know he's an older player, but it's a move that you make to push to win titles. He is a player of obvious quality. He can cover right wing back, left wing back for PSV. He's been playing striker as well. And he's got that Inter DNA. We know, the one thing I love about Perisic more than anything, he absolutely despises Juventus. He choke hold Quadrado in that match in like 2016. He hates Juventus. And that is the best thing any Inter player, any quality they can have is hating Milan and Juventus. And B, he's a champion. He's won with Inter a Scudetto. He's won with Bayern Munich, a Champions League, I believe, and he won a title there. And everywhere he goes, he just oozes quality. Croatia, he's been to the World Cup final, Euro semifinal. He has the making of a champion. And that's what you need in a dressing room right now that some say is kind of frail and mentally weak. You need to bring a player like that into the dressing room to strengthen and bring that mentality. So, Vince, now that you're away from the calamity over there, continue your thoughts that you had earlier.
Right, so Perisic would add some much needed quality. We know he can go on both sides. We definitely need help on the right. Dumfries is probably another 2 months from coming back. Darmian doesn't have the pace going forward like he used to. We don't seem to really try Andy Doof over there. It's not his natural position. He's been solid-ish at it, I guess, against some smaller sides. Um, but then Luis Enrique, I don't want to say he's a bad player, but he just seems inconsequential. He doesn't do anything. Like we
Yeah.
knew coming in, he'd be a project defensively because we were told, oh, he's a winger, he'll be fine going forward. But it doesn't seem like he does anything going forward either. And you look at the maybe the Arsenal game was too big of a moment, but anytime we tried to go through the right side, it just fizzled out. And yesterday, it's pretty telling that we got him out of there in the first half, switched Carlos over there to a side that he doesn't naturally play, and then let DeMarco play the natural position. We have to do something about the right. And it's annoying because it feels, I mentioned this last time, it feels like every window we do something on the right wing back side and it just doesn't work. TJ Buchanan, we bring him in and it doesn't work out. He goes to, where is he at? Villarreal now?
Yeah.
He seems like he's doing fine over there. Um, Luis Henrique, he was one of our few moves this past Mercato. Hasn't really worked out. Um, I know a
You
couple
can
years
look
ago,
back, Sime Versalico, Cedric from Arsenal. You can look at Hakimi. I mean, how many right backs have we gone through in
it's a lot. It
seven,
feels like
eight
it's
years?
yeah, it feels like it's something that we just never seem to get right. And I know even a couple years back, we were talking. It was the summer after we won the Scudetto. We were talking about, oh, is there an upgrade for Dumfries? Are we going to move him potentially because Darmian had kind of overtaken him in the pecking order a little bit by the tail end of that season. So as far as bringing in Perisic, I think he would help on that right side because even at his age, when I watched him play for PSV last season in the Champions League, it seemed like he still had a lot to offer. And I can't say I've watched him much this year. I don't know if he does. The only thing is, it's again a 6 month dry loan, and in 6 months we're going to be back here wondering what to do about the right wingback position, and we're going to need to do something again with that probably on top because it seems like Dumfries is 1 foot out the door. So it's a very win now move that I think would help us, but it's just kicking the can down the road, which I know a lot of people would be excited to see him come back and it would be nice, but long term, I don't know if it aligns with our strategy.
Yeah, true. It's one of those, like you said, it's kicking the can down the road. It's not in line with Oak Tree's strategy. But if we want to win the Scudetto this season, maybe a Coppa Italia, go further in the Champions League, I think it's a necessary move to bring someone with that quality, that experience, that championship mentality in at this stage of the season. So we'll see. I have no faith that it's actually going to happen with this management. These are just the latest rumors. I did see Thomas Meunier, the Belgian. He's 35 years old. He's, of quality as well. That would be a decent move. This is what I want to see, though. I don't want to see Tommy Palacios move, which breaking news, Palacios just got sold. I think it's a loan initially with an obligation to buy from Estudiantes in Argentina. So we have no more Tommy P.
I thought you were going to say the breaking news with this that he's still on the roster because honestly, I forget he's on the team sometimes. I know we got him I think it was in a January window, and
Yeah.
we just never see him. I know he apparently picked up somehow got an injury. I don't know if he
Same with
stubbed his
Darmian
toes.
and Di Gennaro. Like, what are they doing in training where these guys are getting injured like that? Like, what's going on?
I don't know, but
But yeah, we
yeah,
can have a
it's
moment of silence off camera for Tommy P if we need to.
uh,
But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Vince, I appreciate you coming on again. I think the crowd loves whenever it's not just me rambling. So we'll get you on as much as we can and as often as we can. We face Dortmund Wednesday. It's nice that we have a pretty decent little rest here, Friday to Wednesday. And then after that, Cremonese in the league. So all to play for moving forward. Vince, do you have anything to add before we sign off?
so as far as Champions League, I think we gotta, we're a big club. Let's not get it twisted, but I do think we need to manage our expectations a little bit here as far as Champions League is concerned for the rest of this season. Saying it, I've said it before in the group chat, but just putting it out there. I think the European window closed for us last season. I don't think this is a team that can win Champions League this year right now. I'd love to be proven wrong. Maybe we can. Maybe we could. Maybe with some tweaks or we get some people back healthy. Maybe we hit a good run of form and maybe we can make the run that we couldn't finish last year. But I think that this squad is still figuring some things out. And so, and also looking at what we've done in the last couple Champions League games, We apparently learned nothing from the Wanda a couple years ago and tried to hold down a lead, and we threw that game away. Liverpool, we didn't bring our A game. Yeah, we got hosed with a pretty crappy penalty late, but that game would have ended in a 0-0 draw, and it didn't look like we were up for it. Arsenal, we were clearly outplayed, which we knew we probably would be based on the form of each team's this of the based on the form of both of these teams this season. And unfortunately, a couple of those were home games. Both again, the English sides we played were at the San Siro, and we couldn't get it done. We lost 2 games straight there. We lost at the Wanda, and looking at the Dortmund game, going to Dortmund is a little bit of a tricky proposition too. So, it looks like top 8 is probably gone as far as Champions League goes. We're probably going to be stuck in a playoff, which God knows what will happen with that. We can't even speculate on that now. We don't know who we'll get. So I'm not expecting a whole lot from Tuesday, and I think from what we've kind of seen from the squad, and like I think I mentioned earlier, I think there is an implicit focus on the Scudetto. So, Dortmund, it'll be nice to, get some Champions League money, hopefully. But I think the focus then needs to be let's get back to the league. Then we got Cremonese. We have a Copa game against Torino. Just throw the bench squad out there. We should be able to roll Torino. I think you said Como just did.
Yeah, 6-0.
Yeah, and even to start the season, we rolled them 5-0 as well. So, Copa, we'll see what we see. And then it's Sassuolo, I think, and then February 4th, I think it is, Juventus. That game for me, there's 2 must-win games for me on the rest of our calendar this year. On the show right after New Year's, you asked if I had any resolutions, and I said, okay, this squad needs to deliver in the big moments. And in my head, I was circling, all right, there's 3 games here. There's Napoli, there's Milan, there's Juve. Napoli, we couldn't get it done. We got a draw, which was better than last time, but that was a big moment we let get away. And so as we continue what is hopefully a successful title charge here, we see that we're still doing well with picking up points against these smaller teams where our rivals tend to drop points against them. But we need to get one of those like signature wins. And I think focusing on the league here and trying to get a win against Juventus would be a really good step towards that. And then the next derby, I think, when is that? March 8th, I want to say?
Yeah, it's like mid-March.
Something like that, yeah. So I'd say looking ahead, let's not get too bent out of shape about whatever happens in the Champions League. Whatever happens, happens. Let's go as far as we can. We'll get some money from that, but I think the focus is full steam ahead on the Scudetto, and if we get a Copa along the way, yeah, sure, that'd be a nice little feather in our cap to have too.
Yeah, true. Couldn't have said it better myself. Vince, appreciate it. Guys, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Like I said, 6 points ahead in the league. All is not doom and gloom, despite what you might think and hear in the Inter circles. Appreciate all the support, guys. We will be back next week. As always, Forza Inter.